Okay, first thing that we have to do is to check the sound. You guys, is the sound similar levels on both of us? And do you hear us? You all. This is Giovanni here, that is Jonas, and I'm going to try to pronounce your guacamole last name again, Giacalone. Did I do it right?
Yeah, you got it. Giacalone.
Who is a counter-terrorism expert, you guys, which is in Italy, working in Italy, and we're going to talk about it. So first, I kind of want to say that everybody can hear us, and it's going to take a minute till the live is like up to date, you know, to now, to get the comments. So, hello, how you doing, you all? Can you see? Let's see, is it online? Can you see? Are we good? Kali is saying it's morning. What time is it for you? It's 9 p.m. for me. It's an interesting morning. Sometimes I wake up at 9 p.m. and I say good morning, y'all, and everybody's like, no, I'm just kidding. Buena notte, bellissima pizza pasta. Somebody said that. That's a buena notte, bellissima pizza pasta.
Looks like we got our basic Italian going.
Very basic. Jax, hello everyone. Hi Jax. She's our moderator today. Shayna is busy.
Ouch.
All right. Is the volume right? Is everything all right? Can you hear us? Just want to make sure that is all good before I start asking the hardcore questions. Are you ready? There is a Sabine. Buena sera can you read that? Come on, I cannot. I'm going to embarrass myself.
Buonasera, Germania.
And like, buongiorno.
This is turning into an Italian class.
Oh, definitely. Give life a shot. Yo, from Denmark. I got my beer. All right. We can finally start now. Jax gave us we can go. Okay, so proper introduction. Not that yeah. So, okay, I don't know. Like Giovanni Giacalone here. Okay, I don't know. I cannot do it. I should start. I one day I'll be like a proper journalist who can introduce people properly. I'm striving to be like that, you know, but whatever. Sometimes people get mad at me in the comments that I'm too casual with my guests. Like, can't you be more professional when you introduce people? It's not like, we don't care if your guys are friends. You should still be professional about it.
Right.
And to that I say, I try, but I'm just like, my brain is limited, and it's not that I don't want to, it's that I'm not good at it. So Giovanni, here you do counterterrorism, and you are an expert in counterterrorism, and you do consultation for different companies that do counterterrorism. And how is it? It's the IICT, the International Institute for Counterterrorism, right? And
correct.
the ITSS, which is the International Institute for the Study of Security. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's one of them. Then It's Time, which is the Italian team for the Italian team for security, terroristic issues, and managing emergencies. That's based in Milan's Catholic University. And then there's the ITCT UK, which is Islamic Theology of Counter-Terrorism, which is partner of ITSS.
Okay. So you guys understand me why it's so hard to like properly introduce someone? When there are so many acronyms, I really tried remembering all of that and not be like, you know, I hate when you can see that person is reading, which is the other part. Like, this is what I see usually people are doing. They're clearly like, ITS, You All right, let's start. Okay, so what made you interested in that in general, like in counterterrorism? Why
In
did you pick?
terrorism and insurgency and all that stuff. Well, I would say that it roots back to my middle school years in Texas. When in Houston, my history class, we had this really good history teacher. I mean, usually the stuff like history just bored the hell out of me, but this teacher was really good. And when we did world history, we covered the Iranian Revolution and other issues that were going on in Middle East and Africa. And at the time, it was the early '90s. The first Gulf War was going on, and so we would basically have constant updates during history class about Saddam Hussein and what was going on, like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and the troops and everything. And I guess that's where it all started. And and then I just simply followed the path.
It's were you like why what how do you go from like being interested in those wars and operations and everything? Is it it's you studied Islam, right, as well?
Yeah, I did a post grad in UK
Mm-hmm.
to understand specifically the ideology behind the whole movement, Islamist movement. And well, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. Like, if you want to um, go deep into the concept, you got to find a way to dive into it. And back at the time, after my bachelor, there wasn't a lot in Italy if you wanted to um, get into it. So I just wanted to, the UK was the option, and I mean, we're seeing what's going on right now in the UK, so we understand why that was the option.
Where do you think, okay, so now counterterrorism is relevant everywhere, not just in Iraq or Afghanistan, or like you don't have to even travel.
No,
None of us have to
they
travel.
do.
That's amazing. um, but what do you think, like where's the first infection in Europe? Where did it happen?
The first infection, like time wise, like when did it start, or like
I
when's the
think,
where's the biggest spot?
I guess you can say like there was terrorism, like the Munich uh, terrorism. Did you hear
Yes.
about it when you were
Oh yeah,
younger? Was
absolutely.
it part of the reason like you were interested in that?
No, I learned about the well. We need to differentiate here. Um, that is actually what I call Middle Eastern terrorism or Palestinian terrorism.
Right.
It's not. I don't consider it Islamist because Islamist terrorism started in the very late '80s.
Mm,
Uh, remember, let let's say around 1989, the war between the Afghans and the Soviet ended, and that's when we started seeing the whole mess. Um, but there, there's an issue. What we're seeing today is basically the continuum of what was going on with Munich and all, during these years in the '60s and the '70s, because many of the ones that are running, for instance, Islamic communities in Italy are the same Palestinians with Jordanian citizenship that back at the time where they were active in universities in central Italy.
when
Um,
you say active, what do you mean? What did they do?
Activism. They were basically spreading pro-Palestinian propaganda inside universities. One of the biggest hubs was the University for Foreigners in Perugia, but we also had Bologna, Florence, and that's basically what happened. So you know the Palestinian, I don't know how to call them, nationalists or whatever, like what was Black September,
KGB agents.
yeah, KGB agents, right? The PFLP,
They were
you
all
know,
KGB agents, all of them.
of course they were, of course they were, and then
Of
it
course,
turned.
how comfortable is it the Palestinian, like the KGB, like Russia wanted to have terrorist attacks or like to to mess with Europe a little bit. You just use the Palestinians and that's it. And it's like nobody knows it's like the KGB.
Yeah, and they could also count on Gaddafi's Libya back at the time. I mean, Libya in the 1970s,
Mm,
1980s, they had all kind of training camps, all different groups, and not just Palestinians. I mean, they had IRA, they had Badr Meinhof, they even had a training camp with Sendero Luminoso terrorists from Peru. So
yeah.
um,
I'm
that was
actually Latin America and like the involvement of the drugs and terrorism is something that it's a video I'm working on just because a lot of people asked. I just touched on it, like I said, like one sentence is like you about it like at some point, but like one of the very first videos I made, I was like, South Americans, if you think like it doesn't have to do anything with you, just so you know, like a lot of your drug dealers are like they have a lot to do with that.
Oh yeah, there's a
But
lot.
when were you like were you growing up? Were you aware of it? Like were you aware of the activism in universities? Were you aware of what's going on?
Uh, when I grew up, like when I was in university, you mean?
Let's whenever, yeah, in university or.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And what did you think about it then?
well, I mean, um, I've always looked at it with suspicion. I mean, you knew they were there, and you knew that they were active, but you got to keep something in mind. Okay, America is a whole different thing. I mean, we've seen you've seen the level that,
Yeah,
especially in the Ivy League universities, what the whole thing became. In Italy, you need to understand that the context. Italy always had a problem with terrorism, not
yeah,
just with Middle Eastern terrorism, left wing, right wing, the Red Brigades. The Red Brigades and the left wing were closely working with Palestinian terrorist organizations.
of course.
And yeah, I mean, it's something that, have you ever heard of the Ortona rockets case? When they caught, the police caught a Palestinian with a far left extremist, and they were carrying rockets, probably to for an attack against some Israeli airliner. Um, there's plenty of cases, not just in Italy. I mean, in Germany as well. Italy had to deal with in the 70s, in the late starting 1968 until 1979, 1980. There were a lot of issues with domestic terrorism. So in universities, the far left was very active. The far right too, but they often had clashes. There were murders.
Mm,
Activists from both sides murdered, and police officers murdered. It was, I mean, this 20 years they were hell. When you go to a university, when you in Italy, I mean, this year's, of course, they were very intense, but even today, I mean, universities are very politicized. I mean, it's impossible to go to a university in Italy and not feel the political activism that is often radical, because it is. um, I remember during the Syrian war, the civil war, in universities, you would find, for instance, radical left and radical right siding with Al Assad. Um, we know very well that there are student movements that are close, ideologically close to Hezbollah. Uh, if and especially if you go to certain universities, certain faculties in certain cities, you just know that it gets really
Are they
political.
Muslim? Those are Muslims who run it?
You mean
Those, the
the
cells that
activists?
you're in, yeah, the activists.
No, 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 no. They're just political. It's not. No, maybe I think I know what you mean. It's not like in America where you see like radical left activists praying the
Yeah.
Muslim way. No, no. Um, it's very political, but personally, I've never seen anyone pray like they do in at Yale or at Columbia.
Yeah, you just
In,
said like you have some like groups, for example, that are ideologically aligned with Hezbollah, but Hezbollah is a
yes,
very
yes.
religiously motivated. So how can you be
Politically speaking, like
political?
I'll give you an example.
Right.
They're going to have a conference in some library, and they're going to have people from some Iranian or pro Iranian cultural center speaking with them about political issues. So, they're going to have initiatives together,
Mm-hmm.
or this is just an example, but it's not going to get religious. I've never seen that. Recently, I have very recently when one of the preachers in Torino, who is also a Palestinian, I forgot his name, Bahia something, went to university and dressed as a preacher, as an imam with the what's it called, the jalabeya, the robe, and he preached. I don't know if they also had a prayer. I'm not sure because I didn't see the full video honestly, but that was one of the first cases I've seen of someone with an imam, a preacher, whatever that was, entering a university and trying to, bring in some religious feeling.
Right.
Otherwise, it's very rare.
So, or so the first terrorism is like focuses on the like it's Palestinian, right? Like the Europeans don't feel it has anything to do with them. Do you feel like, I'm gonna ask a question. Do you think it was planned ahead to use the Palestinian-Israeli, whatever, Arab-Israeli conflict, Jewish-Muslim conflict, as like as a way to build like real terrorist cells, that their real aim was Italy the whole time, but they used the Palestinian-Israeli conflict to be able to infiltrate? Do you think it was planned ahead of time, or was it just something that was shifted, like, and it's just a natural shift that happened with
Mm,
time? It was like sort of an evolution.
none of the two. I think that the issue is far more complex. Initially, let's say between the late 1960s and early 80s, mid 80s, I would say, uh, we had all this immigration. It wasn't big, but it was present from the Middle East, many of whom were Palestinians with Jordanian or Syrian citizenship, and they came to Italy to study, to their university studies. Many studied medicine, and others that were coming here were not students. They were terrorist cells. I mean, it's documented. You can find all the information about that. Like, they were present, but at the time it wasn't just Italy. It was, I mean, all Europe became a cross point for Palestinian terrorism. France, Germany, Switzerland, not just Italy. Um, and the European governments were very worried about having the Israeli-Palestinian conflict exported uh, in Europe, and Italy was no exception. Then, when the Soviet Union collapsed, and the you know the whole world order started to change. The Islamist soul came out. We started seeing in Italy. In Italy, they started seeing the formation of the first student Muslim communities in the 1970s, but they didn't get big, consistent, influential until the late 80s. When all these Islamic communities started to pop up, it was obvious that most of them were sharing Muslim Brotherhood ideology. I mean, that's a fact. And they were all very, very concerned with the issues that they had back home. To give you an example, the Syrian branch was very concerned about what was going on with back at the time it was Hafez al-Assad who was in power. So what was going on with the Syrian regime? The Egyptians, they were very concerned with what was going on back home, and that link that was maintained was actually extremely important for the development of not just the Islamist feeling, but the anti-Israel feeling that never went away. It's not like, when the Soviet Union collapsed and the PLO and the PFLP, whatever, lost importance, the issue went down. I mean, the issue with Israel was always there. It just changed clothing. It became Islamist. Okay, so every time you had something, like even the Syrian, look, even with ISIS, okay, I'm sure you heard it. Remember al-Baghdadi?
Of
Okay,
course.
according to them, he was a Mossad agent. Okay, he was
Mm-hmm.
a Jew, he was a Mossad agent, and ISIS who had been created in order to, create all the turmoil. That's just a fact. So it's not answering your question. It's not that it was either deliberate or it was casual. It was just some sort of transformation. That's how I would identify it as.
So when was the counterterrorism that the government had to was it there from the beginning, from the 70s as well? If the terrorist cells were there, was the counterterrorism there as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Italian authorities have a long-standing experience in contrasting far left and far right, domestic far left and far right terrorism and extremism. They can do it very well. And when they use that same strategy with Islamists, it worked. Unfortunately, terrorism is also, and counterterrorism is also a political thing, not just domestic, but also on an international level. As you probably know, back in the 70s, many European countries, not just Italy, Germany, France, they all had to deal with far left terrorism. So since they already had that problem, what they tried to do is they tried not to get involved with the Israel-Palestinian issue. What did that mean? Well, something that I'm totally against, but they tried to deal with it, like to negotiate. Okay, we caught a bunch of Palestinians that were trying to, hit an Israeli target in wherever in Europe. Okay, we arrest them. Then after, like maybe a couple of months, we just turn them into a friendly country, friendly to them, not to the terrorists. And in Italy, there's this thing called Lodo Moro, which means law. We could translate it as a Moyo agreement. It takes the name from the former Minister of Foreign Affairs and former Prime Minister, who basically tried to he didn't try, he actually did it. He cut a deal with Palestinians, like, you don't hit Italian targets, and we don't bother you if you go through the country with weapons and stuff, and terrorists. Unfortunately, Jewish, Israeli, and American targets were not contemplated, and we know what happened. Back at the time, it could have made sense, even though I'm totally against it, because my concept is that you don't tolerate, and you don't deal, and you don't negotiate with terrorists. That's my point of view. Back at the time, they probably didn't even have the means to deal with it, so they tried to cut deals, which were absolutely disastrous. Today, the situation is a bit more complex, because sometimes we see them intervening, sometimes we don't see them intervening, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Why is that?
Why? That's a good question. I don't know. I think sometimes it depends on international policy issues.
Right.
Qatar, Turkey, Iran. Sometimes they're afraid. They're afraid that, just an example, they might be afraid that by intervening against a preacher, an imam, they could actually cause violence, retaliation in some cases. It's hard to tell. You have to analyze case by case, because sometimes you see measures being implemented in the right way, and sometimes you're like, why are they not doing anything? Italy has this type of policy that's quite famous throughout Europe. Every time I go to conferences in other European countries, they're like asking me, "Oh, well, what's going on with the deportations?" Because there's this thing in Italy that if you're a non-citizen, of course, and you're considered a threat to national security, they can just throw you out. They load you on a plane and ship you back where you came from, and that happens quite frequently. I mean, I can't remember how many they shipped back since the beginning of the year. I have to read the numbers. I think it's about 50, 60 people. I may be wrong. And it only takes an administrative measure from the Ministry of Interior. They signs a paper, you're a problem, and they take you, they board you on a plane, and you're going back to wherever, Morocco, Pakistan, or wherever. They've done it in April with this 50-year-old Algerian in the city of Udine. He was posting pro-Hamas stuff, pro-Hamas content on social networks, and they shipped him back to Algeria. Unfortunately, they don't do the same with people who actually have more visibility sometimes.
One second. I want to open the article we wrote, but I also want to let me go through. There is a couple of super chats I want to, because I know you have to leave in 45 minutes, and I want to make sure that I go through the super chats as well. Momo Joe, thank you so much for the super sticker and the super chat. And also, Momo Joe also said, Muslims do not need to use violence to take over Italy. They use immigration. In many cases, Europe pays them to invade them. Strange. Actually, that's an interesting point. What do you think of that?
It's actually, he's not wrong. If immigration is a big issue. Italy is one of the oldest countries in Europe, and at some point, if we don't we can find a way to, in Europe in general. I mean, not just Italy. Italy is, it's it's first in the in the order, but in general, Europe has this problem, and of course, if
Europe pays them to invade them? What is it?
I'm
Like, is
sorry.
it the benefits? I don't know. Momo just said.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. A good part of the problem is with the benefits.
Oh,
Um, for I mean, for them, it's very easy to to adapt here, and you need to understand that it's not just the benefits, but they're able to build communities within communities where they support each other. I mean, I've worked in hoods with where there's a Muslim majority, and I've seen it with my own eyes how it works. It's just there's a very strong solidarity between them that it's non-existent in Europe or in America. So if you take that and you add all the benefits and because they're very aware of all the things that they can have, and it surely helps to implement the whole mechanism.
Jax is asking how good or bad is immigration in Italy? Is violence increasing? And how do the Italians feel about the situation? So it's three questions.
And these are all three
You
good
can see
questions.
that. You can see that, right? You can see them in
Yeah.
comment. Okay.
How good, bad? Well, it depends. I mean, it got the public security issue got worse in the last 3 4 years. I mean,
What
cities
does
like
that mean?
well, there's a higher number of crimes. Milan, for instance, which is the city that I know best, is seeing a spiral in North African gang related issues. Um, Before, Milan was considered the European capital of Latin American street gangs, especially the Salvadorian one, right? So MS-13, 18th Street. Now, Milan has a problem with gangs made up by people coming from North Africa uh, and sub-Saharan Africa as well. And if you read the statistics, if you read, as they call it here, the black, like the Corona Canea, black local news, like black, not because it's racist, because it's like, like, I don't know. They just call it like that. Don't ask me. And
How black?
they
What's
call it,
racist?
in Italian, it's Corona Canera. It's like black. Nera is black, but it's not supposed to be something racist. It's something like, it's black. It's dark. It's obscure. um, I mean, it's a war bulletin. Every time I open the news sites from Milan, it's like a freaking war bulletin. And unfortunately, it's not just Milan, because Turin, Padua, Bologna, Rome, it got worse. And it got worse with all these people coming from North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. There were some cases with Afghans as well, but that's mostly in Germany and Northern Europe. And that's a matter of fact. I mean, it's and even I mean even like like the Moroccans and the Egyptians and the Tunisians that have been living here for decades, they're complaining. They're like, I heard it with my own ears. They're like, why the hell are you letting all these people in? Because afterwards people tend to generalize, and we have to deal with it too. But we're bothered by them as well, and I totally understand them. I mean, there are a lot of people who just want to live in peace. There are a lot of people who left their home countries to leave behind, this kind of situations, which they find once again.
Mm-hmm.
So how bad it is? It got worse. It got worse. Is the violence increasing? Yes. And how do the Italians feel about the situation? They're disappointed. they're very disappointed because they voted a right-wing government, hoping that they would see some results, but these results are not happening. Now, I do understand that it's impossible in 2 years to fix the situation, that a disastrous situation that was caused by all the governments prior. But honestly, I believe that they could have done much more in this 2 years.
So, okay, I'm gonna switch to where we can see, but I have a lot of questions and I feel like it's kind of short in time. But I'd love to have you again, to be honest, if you're good with it.
I'll be happy
Because
to.
like a million more questions.
Good.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm like really right now I have two questions in my head at the same time, which is how would you expect the government, like what's stopping the country from dealing with that situation? But I also want to go and go to your article where it says Italy refused to extradite. Like, I don't know how to read that word, to be honest. Extradite Palestinian terrorists, but what is the Okay. So I'm like, I have two, like my brain is split into two right now.
I can answer both. Which one do you want? Which one do you want first?
Let's start with the first question I had, and then we go to the.
Okay. Why are they not doing it? Well,
what can they do, and why is it not happening?
I believe they could deport more. That's something that they should really find a way to implement, because I do understand that the countries from where these people come from, they don't want them back. I mean, it's like in the U.S. in Florida when Castro emptied the prisons with the Cuban convicts, he didn't want them back. And I'm not saying that they're all convicts, but a lot of them are. They're felonies. I remember speaking to a colleague in Ghana from Ghana's military police, and he once asked me, he said, dude, why the hell is Europe taking all these people that are coming out of our jails and out of the jails in Nigeria? And I'm like, okay. So I'm not saying that they all are, but we do see that they don't want them back. And if they don't want them back, there's a reason. So these countries cause all kind of problems, bureaucratic problems, so it's hard to ship them back. Shipping them back is expensive because you need to fly them.
I have a better solution, to be honest.
Huh?
I have a better solution.
I'm afraid to hear it.
Then you know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Secondly, they need to block all the arrivals. They need to filter, because if you don't filter, there's no then you'll have to you'll be stuck. Meloni is trying to do that with Albania. They're trying to. I don't know if it's gonna work. Honestly, I don't know. It's worth a try. And this is just one. This is just one small reason. There's plenty more, but we would have to go on for 2 hours discussing this. What they could do, they could, in my opinion, they need to find a way to increase the flow back, and they need to find a way to filter. I know that it's easy. It's easier said than done, but you got to deal with it.
Why accept anyway? Why do we have to accept Albanians or Libyans or whatever, at all?
I don't know.
Why is there even a filtering process? The perfect filter is just closing the tap, isn't it?
This thing is global, because in Texas we're seeing the same thing with southern border. Everyone's coming in. I was just listening to an interview of a Turkish immigrant, Kurd or Turkish, I don't know. who had just crossed into Texas from Mexico, and he was like, "Why is America letting all these people in? I mean, there were some dodgy people with
No, just
me."
because everybody is doing it. There is a
Yeah,
saying: if
exactly.
everybody is jumping off the rooftop, are you gonna jump too?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's global, unfortunately.
How did this become like a global phenomenon where people are like, that's
I
insane?
I don't have an answer to that.
Do you have like, did you ever what are the reaction of the average Joe, but the Italian version okay, let's just close the tap, or like protect the
Well, I mean,
borders.
look, one of the reasons why Meloni won is because she was against all this illegal flow of immigration. Unfortunately, when it's the electoral campaign, they all make promises. When they go up, things are very different. And again, I understand what the
That
problems are. I understand how difficult it is. But I mean, you got to start somewhere. So start. I mean,
Yeah, that is Jack's question here. Is there any chance of change with elections? Why do you think there is such a big difference between what they promise and how the execution?
look, regarding politics, I'm not very optimistic because you know how politics work. Um, Change with elections. Uh, does it mean? I don't know if Jax is referring to Italy or America.
Now, let's be
And Italy,
honest, it's the same answer everywhere.
in Italy, well, in Italy, we already had them. The right wing won, and we're still waiting to see consistent changes. In
Are
America, I have no idea.
are
Well, I
the
mean,
yeah. Is the Italian public ready for what it means to actually fight back?
fight back against what? Immigration?
Immigration, radicals, terrorism.
Well, I mean, I think that it's not even a matter of being ready. It's a matter of being tired. I think
No, you have to
they,
be ready.
I think, I mean, I think they are ready. The Italian, you mean the Italian public or the Italian institution?
The Italian people.
Well, the Italian people are very, I mean, the Italians went through a lot of stuff throughout their history. So it's not like
So, so they
the,
are
the,
tired.
no, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that they went through a lot, like during, during World War I, World War II. Or, I mean, I remember my grandma telling me when they were hiding from the Germans in the woods or like all that stuff. I don't think that the Italians would have any problems in having to deal with it. The problem is strictly political, in my point of view.
Somebody is really making fun of the Italians in the comments in Hebrew. Was like,
Okay.
have you seen the uniform of the army of Rome? They're ready for everything, which I actually haven't seen. So
I don't know which uniform this person is referring to. There are several uniforms. So
because I don't know if it's actually making fun of them, because the first thing that popped in my mind was the Vatican army, like the Vatican uniform.
they're not Italians.
I know, which is like okay, but
They're
but
Swiss.
then I was like, okay, no, this is the wrong association that I have in brain. So I don't even know if they're serious or not. But when I say
Unfortunately, the Italian law enforcers are held back by politics.
right,
Uh,
so that
they have the potentials to do a lot more than they're being allowed to.
mm, so okay, there is a will, but something.
They would be, I believe that they would be more than happy to intervene, but it's a political problem.
So okay, so please explain when they're talking to politics.
Oh,
Um,
right.
I think this is like this article. I'd love to. Maybe we can understand through what you've written here, like what's going on, like why.
Okay. Maybe I should make a very, very quick summary of what happened so that the people can understand, because this issue hasn't gone much abroad. I mean, it's in Israel, they probably know about it. I know that they know about it in America on a limited base. But okay, in January, Italy received a request from Israel for the arrest and extradition of this individual named Anan Yaish, who is from Tulkarm and who is a member of the what's it called, the Al-Aqsa Brigades of the PLO. Uh, and he was planning attacks on Israeli soil in the West Bank. I forgot the name of the Israeli settlement in the West Bank, Avnei something, I think. He was planning this from Italian soil with two colleagues of his, also Palestinians. This guy has a long history of militant and terror-related activities. He was expelled from Scandinavia, from Sweden and Norway. They refused protection. And he had been living and operating in Italy for several years. This guy had, despite being mostly unemployed, he had 8 bank accounts. His colleague had 9. He was, and by the way, in one of these accounts, he opened it with the Italian mail service. He had 95,000 euros. I mean, that's a conspicuous amount of money considering that he's unemployed.
Wow, terrorism
And,
pays.
well, maybe he was delivering pizza. I don't know.
Yeah.
And and he was in contact. He was in constant touch through WhatsApp video call. Not exactly the safest way to communicate with Munir al-Makta, who is the commander of the Al-Aqsa Brigades in Lebanon. They were speaking on the phone. There's a photo of him speaking with Munir al-Makta, and you can see, I believe that Munir al-Makta was talking from one of his hideouts in Lebanon, and you can see this Dragunov rifle right in the back, and this picture is in the investigation papers. So my question is, why was this guy, who had no passport, just a photo of his passport, because the passport had been withheld from by Norwegian authorities, why was he allowed to operate freely on Italian soil? And why did it take an Israeli request to actually arrest him? And I mean, what's going on here? My guess is that it has to do with this is some sort of heritage of the 1970s deals that we had. This is just my opinion, okay? Take it as it is. The strange thing came. Oh, by the way, when this guy was arrested, the far left started demonstrating in favor of him because he was, he's innocent. He didn't do anything. I mean, there we go again. You see the pro-pals and the radical left going side to side. And then when Israel requested for extradition, the Italian, the L'Aquila Appeal Court rejected it. And you can read why, because basically in Israel, they would have an inhuman treatment. And, the prisons in Israel are a mess. And, it's, how many suicides they had in Italy since the beginning of the year? I mean, it just came out the other day. I don't have the article right now under my eyes, but I wrote about it just, I think, yesterday or the other day for the Time of Israel. And Italy is having a major issue with prison violence, with tortures, with inmates killing themselves.
In Italy.
So, yeah, in Italy. It was even in news the other night. So they're refusing the extradition of a Palestinian militant terrorists or whatever you want to call them, they want to call them, because of problems, human rights in Israeli prisons when Italy is having these issues. Doesn't make any sense. I believe that it was either a political uh, decision, or that they that maybe they fear retaliation. I don't know. That I'm speaking based on the history of terror related issues, Palestinian terror related issues in Italy and in Europe. So because it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, yesterday, a colleague of mine was telling me that Israel actually decided not to go on with the extradition request, but I don't have any formal information about this, so I cannot comment on it. But
Yeah.
apparently, there were rumors that Israel withdraw the request. I don't know. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we see this guy released.
Is
As
Are they not afraid, like, if that it's gonna make some problems for Italy, not just Israel?
mm, well, I believe that as long as they don't cause problems on Italian soil, they don't. They fear more about a potential retaliation by Palestinian terrorists rather than because I mean at the end of the day that's what happened in the 70s. So how many terrorists did they release? Because remember um, when was it? 1973, the Rome airport terror attack. They were released after a short while. So I don't know. I can tell you that within the Jewish community in Italy, there's a lot of um, can't find the proper term, dissatisfaction, concern, because there are too many people that are, doing things and saying things that they shouldn't be. And my personal concern is that, you know, uh, I wouldn't want to see that mechanism. It's okay as long as the narrative is against Jews, Israel, or the United States. It's fine as long as they don't bother Italy. It's something I would never ever want to see, because things have changed, and now this is a risk for everyone. And plus, what's the point of talking about international combined war on terror, common European law enforcement database on terrorism, when they can't even agree on who to pursue, how, where, when?
So it's and how does the average Italian feel about it? It's like, okay, if it's about Israel and the Jews, then it's not our problem.
Uh,
Is it a sentiment that is
no,
shared?
well, I mean, it depends on their political views mostly. There are some people who don't care. Some they just don't see beyond their province. Some are anti-Israel, anti-West, anti-America, so they embrace the anti-West ideology. Some are against Islamism and terrorist organizations and all these actors, and they want to see things done in the right way.
It's it's like, yeah, like, to me it's like mind-boggling. Like, okay, so as someone who you do counterterrorism, is if somebody comes to you and shows you these kind of people, and is like, are they a threat to Italy? What do you do to
What do you
answer
mean?
that question?
Like if they come and ask me,
Who do you consider a threat in your eyes? Like, so it looks like those people. Okay, so they're focusing on Israel and Jews. So it looks
okay,
they're not a real threat, right? In a way.
no, they are a real threat. They're real. They're a clear and present danger. Let's put it like that. Okay, there are laws. Okay, there is a legge Mancino, which is very clear when it gets to anti-Semitism and hate speech against the Jews. And unfortunately, a lot of times, including right now, in cases that are going on right now, this is not being applied. Secondly, we have a blacklist of terrorist organization. Now, let me get straight to the point here. Hamas is a terrorist organization according to the European Union, and Italy is part of the European Union. Now, if someone goes, someone preaches in a mosque and he preaches in favor of ISIS, they immediately take action. Unfortunately, this is not happening with preachers who preach in favor of Hamas, like in Genoa, like in Bologna. It is just not happening because we have a preacher who, in January, a Palestinian preacher, very well known to the intelligence services. They know him in Israel, they know him in America, they know him in Italy, who glorified Yahya Yash. Okay, you know who Yahya Yash better than me, right?
No, I don't know
Are
enough.
you kidding me? Hamas bomb maker. He was killed by the
Oh,
Shiite,
yes, I do.
the engineer. He
Yeah,
glorified.
Yeah, it was okay.
He publicly glorified him during a post on with a post on Facebook in Arabic.
Right.
Why is he still there preaching? We have an imam in Bologna who glorified Hamas 3 times, and he said that the revenge of God will come through the hands of Hamas and Hezbollah. Why the hell is he still there preaching? This is a problem of the Ministry of Interior of Italy. And it's all over the media right now this week. It was all over the media. We had 2 parliament inquiries. A third one is coming. What the hell is going on? I mean, when you ask me who is a threat, okay, Hamas is a terrorist organization, just like Al Qaeda, just like ISIS. If someone is preaching in favor of these organizations, then they're a threat, in my point of view, and there are laws. It's quite simple.
Do you think it's gonna blow up at some point? Like it's gonna really hurt
Blow up.
Italy? Like, I mean, is it like is it like using that? Is it going underground, the preparation? Like in the UK, it feels like it's really you can start seeing like the fear is like, okay, when the UK now will actually elect a government that somehow will be against Sharia like publicly, it's not gonna go like the streets are not gonna stay quiet, right? This is the feeling in the UK, for example.
In the UK, they're already starting to have issues because the people are really tired. They had enough. It's a very complicated situation in the UK because, I mean, the whole background is different from the Italian one. I mean, we got the Islamic and Islamist issue in the UK roots back to the 1930s, 1920s. I mean, we saw the first Tablighi preachers coming from the Indian subcontinent to the UK in 1945. So Italy has a much more recent immigrational issue. I mean, the phenomenon began in when I say the phenomenon, I mean the intense phenomenon began in the mid 1990s, late 1990s. So, I mean, we're getting there because, I mean, the flow is consistent. But I believe that Italy still has the time and the means to intervene before it's too late, um, against radical Islam. Um, at least theoretically speaking. On a
Right.
practical level, it requires some courageous steps, but at some point, the steps will have to be taken anyway. So,
Hello, Ricetto. Ciao. What about the Mehmet Agha attack on Pope John Paul II? Is that forgotten now? Does nothing make a difference when it comes to security? Can you
okay.
elaborate? I actually don't know about the.
No, well, he's referring to the terror attack, the attempted murder of Pope, was it John Paul II? Yeah.
Yeah, this is
I can't
naming the
remember the
Pope
year.
here.
It was in the 1980s by this Turk, allegedly belonging to the Grey Wolves, called, well, I knew him as Ali Achka, actually, but maybe he had also, his name was Mehmet, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I wish I could answer this question, but I don't have. I didn't really follow the whole case, so I cannot. I cannot provide a decent answer. I know. I heard that there were some developments. I know that there were a lot of theories about this guy. He was sent by the Bulgarian secret services. He was KGB. He was uh, whatever. But honestly, I don't know, so I cannot answer the question.
So, what do you think? Okay, so what do you think are going to be the effects of this policy that is happening right? Are you worried for the future of Italy?
Well, I mean, if I
I feel
wasn't
like
worried,
Italy is in the best way, is the best situation, no,
no,
or no?
it's not.
Like compared to other maybe places.
Uh, it's complicated. I mean, if I wasn't worried, I wouldn't be able to do this job. But it's not in the best situation. It's just in a different situation.
Yes.
Each
Okay.
country has to deal with specific issues. Like, for instance, in France, they have a huge issue with the banlieue, with the suburbs. Uh,
Right. Those are no-go zones.
yeah, there are absolutely no go zones. In
I can't
Italy,
wait for their Declaration of Independence.
yeah. But if you recall, France also had problems with Algerian terrorism in the 1990s when Algeria was having a civil war with the GIA and the AIS. Um, uh, Italy has, different issues that it has to deal with. Italy is a bridge between continental Europe and North Africa, so that's one main issue that we cannot avoid considering. Do we have no-go zones in Italy like they have in France? We're starting to have them. Yeah, I can assure you that we do have a few, and unfortunately, this no-goes will very likely increase in the upcoming years. Spain has issues too.
I
It's
mean,
not like,
Spain, the government is awful as well. So.
yeah. Now, I mean, we all know who's in power and who they're siding with. So I feel bad for many of my Spanish friends and colleagues who do not agree with the Spanish position, but that's unfortunately what happens. I mean, even in Italy, at some point, we had governments, and or in America, I mean, with the Biden administration. That's, I mean, in Texas,
How do you get a government that hates its own country so much?
that's a big question. I mean, I have my own theories, but I'd rather not disclose them right now.
No.
I mean, seriously, when I was back in Houston, the border, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Tamaulipas, to the border, South Padre Island. And I mean, the border, I mean, there were coyotes, there were people who would cross the border, but it was nowhere near what it is today. I mean, today's just like flows. There's an island between Texas and Mexico that was used by drug cartels as a, as a basically a free port, a free land where they could do whatever they wanted. They even had shooting between different cartels, between Los Zetas and Cartel del Golfo. Um, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how you get a government that hates its own people. I guess it's globalism. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the mechanism, if you take a look at them, they're exactly the same. They tend to adapt to the context. So, in America, they operate in one way. In Europe, according to the country, they operate in another way. Illegal immigration in Spain is not uh, exactly alike the one in Italy, but it's there. Um, you have to also deal with the geography. Um, Italy, in some way, is far more similar to the to the Balkanic Peninsula, geographically speaking.
Yeah.
Uh, Germany is having its own issues with illegal immigration too. I mean, they were shocked when I remember a few years back when they had the New Year's Eve sexual assaults. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that were going on in Italy and Spain. They
Is
were,
it like that here? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's what happened in Germany at that time was what was going on years prior in Southern Europe. So
but
the
don't go,
German,
the Italians go and take care of these people? Like, I imagine Italians.
well, I mean, I must say that on that issue, the law enforcement is operating pretty well.
You don't need
Um,
law enforcement for that. You actually need the law enforcement to look the other way.
there are things that I just cannot say.
Okay.
But
But you must have like because it feel like it suits the vibe, right? You cannot like how can you have a
uh,
mafia and things like that and not have
there are areas in Italy where these things do not happen. They better not happen. But let's not go any farther.
okay. I mean, ideally, the law enforcement would
I
like, yeah.
was look a few months ago. I was speaking to a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. Uh, he knows very well like the street, the hoods. He lived in Colombia for many years at the time of Pablo Escobar, and he was telling me, he's in Milan. He's from Milan. He was telling me, Giovanni, you know what the problem is with Milan? Is that
Mm.
unlike the south of Italy, Milan is no man's land. So they do whatever they want. No one is
Yeah,
controlling.
that makes sense. Except it
And
was perfect when everybody were having the same value system, kind of, and all the Milan people
it
living
was.
in Milan were like,
It was. Milan started deteriorating around 2012, 2013, in my point of view. I mean, I've lived in Milan for 15 years. I know the city
yeah,
as I know the palm of my hand. And my opinion, my impression is that it got worse progressively. I mean, now we've seen an escalation since right after the COVID pandemic, right after 2020, it just got worse, and every year it's getting worse. I speak to now. I'm not based in Milan now, but every time I go there quite often, and when I see it with my own eyes, or when I speak to my friends and colleagues, they tell me like, dude, I mean, things just got worse. I mean, they're just stealing and mugging and breaking cars, stealing the wheels and leaving the bricks underneath.
Right.
All kind of crazy stuff.
And there is no police.
No, I mean the police is there, but what can they do? I mean, they're a limited number. They need more people. They need better laws that protects them, because whenever the police acts, everyone's like there with their cell phone showing how mean the police is. And
So mini Gaza.
yeah, like a mini Gaza. Like there's always whenever there's an issue, like there's I don't know, there's like an underage mugging someone or attacking someone, and then the police intervenes. There's always the idiot with the cell phone going, "Oh, no, leave him alone. He was not doing anything," and
Does
who
it
doesn't
work?
even know what was going on.
I bet the media, does the media cooperate with that? They probably do, right?
Well, no, I
Or
mean,
no?
it depends. It depends on the media. The media has its own political ideology and agenda, so it all depends on, generally speaking, I must say that the media, except for some of them, tend to be quite sympathetic to the law enforcement. Of course, it
That's
also
nice.
depends on who's up ruling, who's up in government, and it depends on a lot of things. But generally speaking, now it's better than it was before. Before it was worse, but we still have, like, sometimes we had cases of recently of riot police going against students in some university area. I can't remember where, somewhere in the central northern part of Italy. And they immediately they start accusing the police of beating up students. What they didn't say is that the students tried to break the wall made by the police to approach pro-Israel demonstration. So that's the thing. Like, we have pro-Israel demonstration, which is usually smaller than the pro-Palestinian one, because the pro-Pals bring all their far left friends. And when the far left tries to break the cordon of the police to go and look for contact with the pro pro-Israel demonstration, the police has to intervene because it's a matter of protection. And then you have them, like, filming and saying that the police is beating up students, but that's not
That's it.
what happens.
In 2014, went to Milan, immense Muslim population.
Yes, he is right. Go now and see how it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazingly frustrating how it's like happening all over globally. Well, I know. Okay, so I know you have to go now, right?
Yeah, I actually do.
So, any last statements before we say bye to everyone? And thank you.
Well, no, I mean, follow my blog on the Time of Israel.
Yes.
Follow my articles on the Washington Outsider. This is for the English language people, and for the Italians, well, follow me on Facebook, follow me on LinkedIn, and of course, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
A great pleasure being here, and hope we can do it again.
Yeah, I would love to.
And I mean, I'm sure that we'll be seeing a lot of things happening in the upcoming month.
It's amazing.
By the way, I'm still hoping and waiting for the IDF to get rid of Yahya Yash. I mean, I have a bottle of wine, and I want to open it. What are you guys waiting for?
It's not the only Yahya we want to get rid of.
I know. I know.
Yes. Yeah, please get Giovanni again, being interesting. Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you.
Thanks, Jax.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you
it's
very
a
much.
common sentiment here. Yeah, like it's
Seriously, how long can you hide in a tunnel for?
before you die out of vitamin D deficiency.
Not just that. I mean, he can have all the sophisticated technological system
I mean,
that he
ask
wants.
Nasrallah.
But yeah, that's true. That's true. Nasrallah has an issue with coming out of the
Mm,
of the uh, of the dump.
yep. It's like I like it, to me it's incredible, like. But yeah, well, thank you so much for coming. Even though I have like a million questions, I'm gonna let you go and everybody go. And thank you
Write
all.
them down for next time.